This is Theater Talk. I'm Susan Haskins. Here with me is my co-host, Marital of the New York Daily News.
He is a neophyte writer of prose, but you may have heard of a few of his plays. The Odd Couple, Plaza Suite, California Suite, Barefoot in the Park, London Suite. Our guest, of course, is Neil Simon. Mr. Simon, welcome to Theater Talk.
Theater Talk Suite.
Theater Talk Suite, that's right. In the acknowledgments of the book, you say you thank some people for navigating the dangerous shoals of writing prose. This is your first book.
Yes.
How tricky, how difficult was it for you not to write dialogue?
I'm good at coughing, wait.
That difficult, huh?
It wasn't that difficult, but I wasn't always on sure ground the way I would be in writing a play. But so we had the editing process, and we talked on the phone, and they faxed us, and I faxed them. It wasn't as difficult as I thought, but as I said, new territory, and it was enjoyable.
Yeah, yeah. The book is called Rewrites, and many interviews you said that you are a rewriter. You rewrite everything. You've always been that way, even when you start out doing the jokes for television? Always never satisfied with something, always going back, polishing, cleaning? When
I worked for television, I never worked alone. When I was writing on Your Show of Shows, there were 7 or 8 of us. When I worked on Bill Go, there were 2 or 3 of us. When I worked with my brother, there was just the 4 of us. So now that I write alone, for the past 40 some odd years, I rewrite everything, yes.
In writing the book, you are a dramatist, exaggerate things for effect. Any embellishments in the book? Any temptation while you were writing it, remembering some of the anecdotes to maybe make them a little more dramatic or funnier than they actually were?
No. The only way they might be funnier is that I can't remember the dialogue exactly. So what I put down in the dialogue is my impressions of what was said. That is exact. The words aren't always exact, although sometimes they are. But no, I'm not looking to embellish anything. I was trying to tell as close to the truth as I could.
Did you ever call up anyone and ask them to remind you of what happened?
Occasionally. I think I asked my daughters specifically about the ending of the book,
yes,
what the memory was of when their mother, my wife, was sick at the time. But beyond that, they wouldn't remember anything, right, especially in the early days of my career.
Right, right. Let's start with your first play, where the book starts, Come Blow Your Horn, first play you ever wrote. Why did you want to give up the television to go write a play? Weren't you having a good time?
No, I wanted to write plays. I wanted to be a playwright. I wanted to be a real writer. Working in television, you're always writing with other people, and you just haven't, you have no identity, and also you never write out of your own self, your own feelings. You're always writing what Red Buttons want you to say, right, or whomever.
Or Jerry Lewis.
Or Jerry Lewis. Well, I did it once or twice.
Well, you tell this wonderful story about how Jerry Lewis helped push your playwriting career along.
Well, a little bit. I don't think he was knowingly
right,
helping me, but he was sort of taken aback by the fact that I was not afraid to cut anything in the show. Usually he has to fight with the writers and say, and they're holding on to it. No, Jerry, that's really terrific. But I'm glad to see the things that don't work go. And there's a line in the book that Sid Caesar said to me, which I thought was wonderful about cutting. He said, if they don't hear it, they never know you wrote it.
Right.
That was his English, his grammar. But the wisdom was his also.
But you were what, 33 when you wrote Come Blow Your Horn?
Yeah, but I started when I was 30.
You started when you were 30.
So it took 3 years and all the paper I could find.
It must have been frightening, though, to sort of jump off the abyss. I mean, I assume you're making an okay living writing for television. You could probably have...
very good living, yes. But the times were changing and everything was moving to the coast. So if I wanted to keep on writing for television, I'd have to move to California. My wife didn't want to, and I didn't want to. I was hoping I could have a career in the theater. But 2 or 3 of my good friends who worked some on the Show of Shows and others who wrote their plays, they were shot down in like 2 nights and it was gone. So I figured those were the odds for me as well. And it nearly happened with Come Blow Your Horn. I mean, we finally sneaked in with the help of people like Noel Coward and Groucho Marx who came to see the plays and put their stamp of approval on it.
Well, Leonard Lyons, the gossip columnist back then, used to run around Sardi's, I'm told, I wasn't there,
right,
just taking down whatever people were saying, and Groucho plugged the play and that was it.
Yeah, but maybe the press agent, no, it was Irving Lazar, Swifty Lazar, you've heard of him. Maybe he purposely went to those places with those people knowing that, that they would be coming. principally because Irving knew he would be selling the play for me, even though he wasn't my agent.
Right. Now, was it Come Blow Your Horn, or that he sold for like 300,000 and pocketed, or sold for 400,000, then pocketed 100,000?
Yeah, no, that was Barefoot in the Park.
That was Barefoot in the Park.
And then The Odd Couple. So he actually sold the first 3 plays that I wrote.
And he made you pitch The Odd Couple right after the JFK assassination, wasn't it? Or
Well,
no?
we didn't know that. We went
Yeah.
out there to do it, and on the day that we were to leave for Paramount Studios, we were waiting for our car, and a woman drove up and screamed. She said, "My God, the president is dead." And it was, I mean, an incredible moment, as was for everybody in the country. So we canceled it for a week, and it was still difficult to go over there and talk about what seemed a silly thing at the time compared to what we were just going through. But I told it to them, and Irving was called swiftly for good reasons. He sold it that day.
Did you have, when he sold Barefoot in the Park for, I guess, was 400,000, and you got 300, he pocketed 100.
Right, yeah.
And he pocketed 100. I mean, were you taken aback, a little miffed?
I
It
was,
your money.
but that's not what he said to begin with. He said, "Would you take 300,000 for this script?" And I said, "Sure, I would."
Why not?
What do I know what he's going to get? So I couldn't get angry about it. I knew he was going to do it again with The Odd Couple when he said, "I'm going to sell it to Paramount." I sold the first 7 plays that I did as films to Paramount, principally because Paramount Studios was the only one I knew how to get to. If they said it was in the Valley, it was Disney or
get to
someplace else.
physically.
I don't know how to
Oh, I
get
see.
there.
Just
So I'm
physically
not
driving
going
around.
out there to make a movie there.
Now, you knock Los Angeles quite a bit in your book, but you live there now. What happened? And do you like it now?
I knock Los Angeles quite a bit. but
Well,
we're
you
not-
say you
we're not
didn't
gonna
want to
sell
move
any of
out
it.
there. And,
You didn't want to move out there? You
No,
wanna
I
stay
didn't
back
want to move
here?
out there then because it meant giving up the theater. No, I kind of like it now.
Why did you move out there permanently?
Why?
When and why?
Are we getting a phone call?
No, that was just a...
Okay.
Want to stop for a minute? That's all right.
Oh,
Oh,
it's
my
all
God.
right.
Just like doctors on in the theater at night.
Just pick it up.
Okay.
We're still rolling.
Okay.
Yeah, you do knock Los Angeles a little bit in the book, and you're responsible for that great joke about Los Angeles, which,
Yes.
would you mind telling us?
Yes, I had said the difference between New York and Los Angeles is that in New York, when it's 108 degrees in the summer, it's only 78 in Los Angeles. In the wintertime in New York, when it's like 20 degrees below zero, it's 78 in Los Angeles. However, there are 4 million interesting people in New York and only 78 in Los Angeles.
79 now that you're there, right?
No, I was the 78. Actually, they made me first because they wrote an article of it in Los Angeles Magazine. They made me first, and then they wrote the other people, and then they got scores of letters from people who said, "Why aren't I in the 78 top most interesting people?" And their letters were so uninteresting that's why they didn't print it.
But I'm just curious, though. You know, you're out there now. You've been living there for quite a while, and you do like it. What's changed for you?
Well, I'm married. I have a child there. I now have 3 daughters out there, and they all live out there, about an hour and a half away from us. So I still love New York. We have an apartment in New York, and we come in every time I do a play, which is quite often. I'm here, and on occasions like this. But as you get older, I mean, you like better weather for yourself.
Right.
You like an earthquake now and then, you know.
Mudslide.
A drive-by shooting once in a while breaks up the day for you.
You are, as Larry King was just saying the other night, the most successful playwright in the history of America. But you know, you grew up with not a lot of money. You grew up a working class, a poor kid in New York.
True.
When did you realize, and what was it like to be rich? To know I came from nothing, and now I'm writing plays that I'm selling for $300,000 to Paramount Pictures.
Well, I'll tell you when I first felt rich. There was a show called The Phil Silver Show, which was not the Bilko show. It preceded it. And I was 19 years old. And they said, and my brother and I went for the audition. And they read our stuff, and they said, "Okay, we hire you. It's $200 a week." And we came home, and we said, $100 a week a piece. This is incredible. Until we got our first check and found out it was $200 a week each. I thought I was Rockefeller. So that's when I felt rich. And anything that came after that was incredible. But I never thought about the money. It just kept coming and coming slowly. The play was a 3-year gamble in which you get no money, and you never do. Even till today, I write a play and no one's going to give me money up front.
Right.
I wouldn't ask anybody. But I don't know when the exact day was. I think it was Thursday, October 17, 1971, something like that.
Well, you know, in the Moss Hart autobiography, there's a great scene where he goes to the box office and he realizes that he can get a check from the box
Right,
office
yeah.
in advance, and that's the first time he realizes that.
Yeah,
You know,
but
I'm
he-
never going to have to worry about not having money
Yeah,
again.
but he had a different background. He wasn't making a lot of money in television. I
Right.
mean, he came from, the Catskills or someplace like that, and then wrote this play with George S. Kaufman, and suddenly it hit, and he went and got his family and moved them from Brooklyn right to Manhattan.
Right. But you're not very good with money, as you admit in the book.
Right.
Your wife is laughing over that. I see things have not changed, right?
Well, I'm not very good at I'm good at my own money when it comes to the theater. I mean, I invested in a lot of my plays, and I've done very well with it. Things that I'm good at, I'm all right with money. But with the investments that they put in, I tended to listen to a lot of people until, fortunately, late in my life, I stopped listening to them.
Mm-hmm. But you made one, as you say in the book, a big mistake in selling the rights to The Odd Couple to Paramount.
The film rights,
Yeah.
yes. What I didn't know, they didn't quite tell me that I was also losing the stage rights to Barefoot in the Park, and that hurt almost as much.
Right.
Because God knows how much money that was. That's 35 years of a play that's playing all over the world all the time, and I never see a penny of it. Well, I don't see a penny out of The Odd Couple.
Did it bug you to see The Odd Couple on every week knowing you weren't making a nickel?
I did not watch it for the first 2 years. I was so angry at myself, at the man who told me to do this.
Now, this wasn't Swifty Lazar.
No. This was a business manager who coaxed me into it by his reasoning was, who knows if you'll ever write another play. Here they're going to give you $125,000 capital gains, and you may not have another play ever that's a hit.
A bird in the hand.
Or 125 of them.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Because I was struck by your self-confidence when you wrote Come Blow Your Horn, your first play, and you went through so many rewrites, and yet you just persevered. You were going to get that on.
Yeah, I don't know if it was confidence as much as it was fear. I mean, it was like running for my life. If I didn't do it, if I didn't make it, if I gave up on it at any one time, it would be over for me, that dream. And I would go out there and I would never have the aspirations fulfilled that I had for myself. So working on that was really a matter of life and death for me.
Yeah.
I would have survived it, but, and I'm not even so sure that if it didn't work that I wouldn't go back and try another one, so I can't discredit myself that much.
Yeah.
But fortunately it worked just enough. I was lucky enough not to have a major hit because they're very hard to overcome with the second play. But that just got by, and it ran for 2 years and subsidized me to sit down and write Barefoot in the Park and The Odd Couple.
So and Barefoot in the Park was a major hit.
Yes.
Now, and then you got to The Odd Couple, where you have this wonderful description, all aspiring playwrights should read it, about trying to get the third act right.
Right.
And you and Mike Nichols are working on it, and you're not getting it. You're not getting that third act.
Yeah.
It's just not working.
No, that was terrifying.
But do you think you were overcoming the Odd Couple hit, that's why you were sort of stuck with the,
No,
not the Odd Couple, the
there's-
Barefoot in the Park?
No, you just go wrong somewhere in the play. And the first act, I knew it somewhere in the back of my head because, as I said also in the book, the night before we had, there was a party, and I said to Mike Nichols, "Do you love the play the way it is now?" And he said, "It's wonderful," because we worked together for 6 months on the play. And I said, "I feel so too, but I feel tomorrow morning about 12 o'clock after we're through with the first reading, we're going to find out we're in trouble and we don't know where it is now. And we're good, we're professionals." And sure enough, we found it out in the third act. And so Mike said, "You go home and write a new third act and I'll rehearse the first 2 acts." I mean, easy to say that, but I have to go home and write something that it took me 6 months to write in the first place, just the third act. And so I wrote it in 3 days and went back and I said, "I'm a genius. I have written the third act in 3 days," and I put it on the table. I said, "There it is, guys." We read it and it was worse than the first third act. And that's when the panic set in, because then you think, what am I going to do now? The train is going to Wilmington and I have to get this play on. And what was also made it so terrible was because the first 2 acts were so good. I knew I had it in the palm of my hand. Sounds like the Maltese Falcon.
Right.
You know, I have it. And it would be an enormous hit, and I couldn't get the third act right. And I never could until we got to Boston. And Elliot Norton, the critic, helped me by saying, "Where are those Pigeon Sisters? Why don't you bring them back in?" And it never occurred to me. And
Bring
I
back the
did,
Pigeon
but
Sisters.
then that didn't work in what I did. And it went on and on forever, the not being good.
For my money, any third act that has Carol Shelley in it, though, has got to be a good first
Yes,
act. She
but
is a
that was
terrific
that was
actress.
one of my pride and joys, that Mike could not go over to England to find the English girls, and he sent me.
And you went, yeah.
And he says, I said, "You trust me?" He said, "Yes, I trust you." So we auditioned about 200 girls, and there was no decision about taking it. They just stood out so much, Monica Evans and Carol Shelley.
Yeah.
And look, I've used her all the way up till today.
She was brilliant in
recently.
London Suite.
In London Suite.
Brilliant in London Suite.
She's great.
Yeah. I'm interested in there's a little description in your book of the opening night of, I believe it's Come Blow Your Horn, where there's a kid in a phone booth waiting to hear the reviews.
Right, in Sardis.
Yeah, and the reviews, they're not raves, kind of mixed reviews, but there's a kind of happiness he has about reporting to people that they aren't bad. And you say something about theater people there. You say
Right.
that there's a core to them that might not be so nice. What is it about theater people? You spent your life in the theater. What is
Yeah.
it about you people that makes you kind
Well-
of difficult to be around? And are you like that?
It happens to you people, too. No, it comes from...
We're on your team, Neil.
It comes from, I think, the Oscar Wilde line about it's not enough for you to succeed, your friends have to fail. And so that goes on in the theater all the time. Did you hear the show was no good in Boston?
Yeah.
You know, they love that. Oh, that's too bad, they're going to fail. Oh. But
My phone rings off the hook when the show's open out of town.
I
Guess
know
what?
that. But they also jump on the bandwagon when they hear it's good. Oh, great, I'm glad to hear that. But there is this kid, I've never seen him in my life or since, and he's on the phone, and I'm standing on the table about 50 yards away, it seemed like, because I couldn't even get near it. I was lucky to get into the party in the first place. And he has a big smile on his face, and he nods, he goes, and he opens up the door, and he goes like this. And I was not so angry that we got a bad review, but it was that
The
this
glee.
little monster was so happy about it. I mean, I don't know if anyone cheered and said, yeah, it's a failure, because there were a lot of people rooting for us.
Yeah.
But slowly it caught on because, as I said before, the Noel Coward and Groucho Marx thing.
Does that make you a little standoffish towards theater people, that experience?
Well, it wasn't, I was standoffish in my life,
begin, yeah.
so yes, I'm standoffish right now. But it made me wary because I knew, you know, you go in and so naive and so hopeful that everybody works with each other. And, gee, Morse Hart's going to come in and give us a lot of help with this. Nobody came around to help. Except someone like Henry Fonda would come. He would come from California and go to see plays, and if he even liked it a little bit, and he met the author, as he did with me, he said, this is really good, keep on writing, keep on writing.
Really?
And it was really nice.
I was talking to some people this morning about you who've worked with you, anonymous sources, you might say.
Oh, I know.
And you know.
He wrote that book. About,
That's right, Primary
President.
Colors.
Right.
You know, one of them said, Neil Simon can seem to people in a rehearsal hall or in a theater, sometimes the cast members, a little cold. And he intimidates people, not only because of the enormous success he brings to any show he's involved in, but also just the personality he is. Do you think of yourself as intimidating?
No, it works the other way.
You see how we're sweating here talking to
I
you.
see the people intimidated, and I'm saying, why? I'm your friend. I mean, but I can understand it with actors. It's just as I would feel as a writer if somebody read over my shoulder, and I said, don't, it's not ready yet. So the actors in rehearsal don't want me to see that they're doing it not well yet. They need to rehearse it. But I'm not ever watching them during the rehearsal. I'm only listening to the play, to what I have to rewrite. When we get past the second week, we're getting into the third week, and I've done all that I want to do, then it's up to the director and the actors, and I would sometimes leave then. I'll give them much more time. And then by then, they're kind of happy that I come back because now they're ready to please me.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever, because you had this string of hits, then did you ever write one that while it was going up you thought, this isn't really that good?
I knew it when I was writing Star Spangled Girl, because the typewriter keys were like 15 pounds each, like this. I hated it, and I went to the producer, St. Suba, who was the one who encouraged me on Barefoot when I wanted to give up on Barefoot.
Right.
He said, believe me, it's wonderful, Barefoot. I gave him the finished product of Star Spangled Girl. He says, this is better than Barefoot. And I said, no, it isn't. It stinks. It's no good. He says, listen to me. So I did, and we put it on. It didn't stink, and it ran a year, and it runs still, but I don't like the play much.
And you don't speak highly of the movie either.
Oh, worse. Well, I didn't do the movie,
Yeah.
and it's. I don't speak highly of a lot of the movies, partly because it's my own fault. In the beginning, I was kind of stage bound, and I was obstinate. I wanted to keep the play up there. I wanted the words up there, forgetting that it's film. It's another medium. For example, Plaza Suite all took place in the same suite. Afterward, I saw it after a while. I said, "This is stupid. There are other suites
Oh,
in
I
there."
thought that was a
I could
wonderful
have done
movie,
it.
though. Yeah.
I know the
Yeah.
movie did work.
It's a
Thank
good
you.
movie. It was just on the other night, and I watched it, and I thought
yeah.
it holds up very, very well.
It does because the acting is
The
so
acting
good,
is so
Yeah.
good.
and the writing's not bad.
Yes.
And but
That too.
but with California Suite, I think we had a better film, and it did much better in terms of business
Yeah.
as a film, and we had a great cast.
Well, we're on the subject. London Suite, which I enjoyed in the theater, did not get the best of reviews for the television production. Were you satisfied with it?
No, not really. I like what we did in the theater because, first of all, we didn't break up the pieces the way we had to, which strangely enough worked in California Suite when we interlocked or interwove all of the pieces of it. But when you're in the theater and you see Carol Shelley and Paxton Whitehead doing Sydney and Diana for like 35 minutes, it's a solid piece. It's a terrific piece of craftsmanship in terms of all of our contributions. And you do it on film, with very talented and very popular people, but maybe not well suited for that
Yeah.
thing. And we have to cut it down so much, and I lose interest in it. There's no more I can do with it. It's what always happens with a film anyway. Some of them come out really right. Strangely enough, I think the original films come out better than the
adaptation.
adaptations. Sunshine Boys was a good adaptation. So Biloxi Blues was a very good one.
Right.
The Odd Couple, a pretty good one, but a very successful one. But I prefer, in terms of films, The Goodbye Girl and Heartbreak Kid, pictures like that.
The Goodbye Girl. This is not in your book, but I happened to be around when The Goodbye Girl was made into a musical, and I did write a little bit about it, much to Manny Eisenberg's dismay.
To mine too. Not
Yeah.
your writing. I mean, the show.
No,
was
but
to
Manny
my
always
dismay.
calls me because says, it was not a success, and he keeps calling me to say that it's beginning to make money. They're going to do it here. We're going to get a little more money.
Oh, that's true.
into
That's
the
going
bank.
on now. They're
Yeah.
doing it in London soon.
What happened with that musical, first of all? And I also know that it was a breakup between you and Gene Saks, with whom you'd worked for a long time. Are you still friendly with Gene? Are you still speaking
Yeah,
to
I'm
him?
friendly with Gene, and it was like a natural breakup. The show was not going well, and we needed help, and so it was beyond help, I think. I don't think that it was that drastic. I think there was some quality in it, but the minute you turn it into a musical, I'm out of control now. I can't write the emotional moments. It's like I write up to it, now the songwriters do it. I didn't like a lot of the songs, and I had difficulty with the lyricist of getting him to change.
David Zippel.
Yeah, and I don't find that trouble in the 5 musicals I did ever with the composers. Composers, bang, 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 they'll sit and they'll write melodies all day long.
Cy Coleman can write a melody like that.
Yes, and with a lyricist, they go 5 days over 2 words. I can't change that. The rhyme took me so long. And I said, yeah, but you're not saying what it should be saying. So it's a community project, and I don't like working that way. I did 2 of the musicals because I loved the idea of working with Bob Fosse and Gwen Verdon.
Sweet Charity.
Yeah, well, she did only Sweet Charity, but A Little Me I worked with Bob, and I loved that experience. And Promises, Promises, which I think is the best musical I wrote, that was my idea, to bring in Burt Bacharach and Hal, and we really worked well together. It's a great score, and everything fits the show.
And we should say it's being revived by the City
hear.
Center Encores this year, too.
So there's a possibility that maybe it'll happen. The Chicago thing will happen.
Do you have any interest in doing any more musicals, though? I mean, I know
No.
it's not your favorite thing, but will you do, no, you don't want to go, you don't want to be in Boston in February with a new...
I don't even have any interest in talking about it. No, I
About-
don't want to do musicals.
Really?
No, well, I just have so many plays left in me. I think there are 7 left in me. I could feel them.
Really?
I could just feel how many there are in me.
And you're writing books.
Yes,
Hold on,
there's a
wait there.
second book coming.
Yes, because this book ends with the death of your first wife, and
Right, yes.
then you said that's the end of this book. Why did you end it there?
Well, I didn't intend to. I was going to write the full book. But I had what was then about 410 pages or something, and I said, if I write the next half, it's another 400 pages. I didn't want it to be one of those books that hold down papers on your desk.
Right.
So I said, I will write it another time. Also, this was such a traumatic event in my life. I felt my life had stopped then. And I thought the book should stop now so I could take a breath, so the readers could take a breath, even though I know a lot of them said, oh, I wish you would continue. I want to hear what's happening next. So they'll hear 2 years from now.
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about your wife, Joan, because she plays a big part in your book. You met her at a summer camp, right?
A summer camp, right,
Catskills?
Tamament. Well, I was working with my brother Danny, and we were writing shows that were based on what Max Liebman had done and then was doing at that time on your show of shows.
Right.
We did an hour-and-a-half review every week. Joan was living with her family, but she worked at the camp as a children's counselor.
Mm-hmm. But she had been engaged. She was engaged to someone, right, when you first met
The
her?
year before, she was engaged to a law student, and I had seen her that first year, and some guy said, "There's the girl you should have met. She's really terrific, but she's getting married." So I came up the next year, and I was with a friend of mine standing there and watching her, and he says, "Isn't that Joan terrific?" I said, "Yeah, but too bad she's married." He says, "No, she's not married. She broke it off." And so we met that summer. As I described in the softball game, she was pitching and I was missing the ball looking at her.
Well, sure, who can blame you? Was she the first person to read your plays always? First person you showed them to?
Probably, yeah, she was at that
Was she
time.
tough? Was she tough on them?
Well, you know, there's a way of being tough. You could read it and say, "This is wonderful, I love it." Or you can say, which usually happens, "It's good, it's very nice." Which
Interesting.
means you've got more work to do. What she did say, which was very helpful, was you're rushing the endings. You always rush the endings. And I said, "I know I do because I want to finish it." As Robert Moore, who directed a couple of my things, said, when he blocks the show for the first time, he says, "Okay, now I could get hit by the bus. At least I could go out and do it." Then he does the refining on it. So I didn't worry about the endings. I never do, because I know I'll always work the hardest on that when the time is right.
Right, right. Another important character in the book, your brother, Danny.
Very.
Yeah. Now, you do say your breakup with him, when you decided to go off on your own to write the plays, was difficult. I think you indicate that you went through some rough times during that period. You don't really go into it in the book, though. I mean, what happened between you and Danny?
Danny wanted to go to California. I got married to Joan at that time. He wanted to go to California. His aspirations were never the theater. He wanted to write television, hopefully movies, and he did very well eventually in television. I didn't want to go there. But also what was happening was I had the feeling that I wanted to start writing the plays, and I wanted to write them alone. I don't think two people can write a play that says what's inside of you. So, but what happened in terms of the breakup is I felt enormously guilty about leaving him. But as a matter of fact, he did very well, very quickly too. But until I got the telegram when I was on a honeymoon with Joan that he had just gotten a good job out there, I had bouts of claustrophobia that were just awful.
You're just afraid to be stuck in elevators and everything like that.
Well, one of the worst was going up to the top of Notre Dame Cathedral, where you go up these winding steps and the windows get smaller windows, and you can't go back down because all the other tourists are blocking the thing up. Right. And I said the only way to get down is to jump. So
was there? I just want to continue about Danny.
Sure.
Any sibling rivalry there at all? I mean, you are enormously successful and you are more famous than your brother. Is any indication that he ever was a little envious, a little jealous, resented you in any way?
Well, he would never say that, and there has to be a certain amount of that. I think what he got that was really bad and tough was that there were some insensitive people to say, "Hey, your brother's doing really good, Danny." Right. And I mean, Danny leaves himself open for a lot of jokes sometimes, but he is one of the warmest and giving people in the world. But till this day, it started then, and till this day, I still need his approval. And he'll eventually give it to me, but he'll also be very accurate, and when he'll read something and say, "I don't get this section here, what is this about?" And I say, "Oh, Danny, it's good, don't worry, it'll work." And then I find out later that he's right about it.
Well, he was like a father to you, wasn't he?
Well, he was my surrogate father in a sense, because my father was not there, so Danny was the one who read my report card, read my marks, yelled at me for not getting good marks, and I said, "You're my brother, you're supposed to be on my side."
And played the pivotal role as your brother in introducing you to your first, to be polite about, a sexual experience here in New York, right?
Yes.
Took you to a hotel and...
set it all up. And yes, and I was frightened that he didn't come upstairs with me. I thought he would be my second.
You thought you were going to room
He'd
to write.
hold the jacket, you know, get ready, here's what you do. When you get on the bed, so-and-so, so-and-so, okay, go kid.
You have a very interesting part in the book. In the 60s, you decide, I'm going to be Neil Simon, the swinger, maybe for a little bit. You take your wife out.
Well, I wasn't the swinger, yes, but it was going to be
You'd had an
free.
indiscretion with a woman in the chorus of...
Promises, Promises.
Want to name her? Just kidding, just kidding.
But
He didn't have a name.
you had inhaled, and by your own
I
admission,
inhaled,
you
yes. That was
inhaled.
the first time, and it knocked me for a loop,
Right.
to say the least.
So we had this indiscretion, and
Yes.
you feel guilty about so much in your life. Did you feel guilty about this one too? How could you face your wife
Of course
the
I
next
did.
day?
No, I did feel guilty, but what prompted it, I think, was that I was having the reputation of being a very nice guy, and that seemed so bland to me. Now, I didn't go out to do that to prove myself I'm not a nice guy, but it happened. And to get into that, I'd rather not, deal with all of that. But I felt beyond that, even that I felt I wasn't getting into a darker side of myself, understanding. I said I can't be a very bland person and write somewhat important plays if I want to, but you can't become Dorian Gray in order to do it. So I didn't go that far with it.
Mm-hmm. But you have this great scene where you take, which I think should be in a play, you take your wife out to dinner and you tell her that I want some breathing room, I want some space.
Yes.
And her reaction to it is?
Well, she just kept saying, sure, whatever you want, which made me feel...
She really played you well.
Oh, she was very smart. She knew right from the beginning, from what I was saying, the way everything I did that night. She said, fine. And so when did you want to leave? There was no vindictiveness in the way she said it, no anger. And I'm saying, what's going on here? She knows something that I don't know. And so she said, well, fine. Tomorrow's a good time to leave. And I went, never mind. Just like that, it was over with. I said, I had my freedom, fine.
Yeah.
Also, I knew there was no way in the world I wanted to leave her.
Right. I want to just give you a chance to answer a charge that Jeremy. I'm sorry.
You have to get to her.
We will.
sometime.
That Jeremy Gerard.
Then him over there.
Oh, sorry.
Not a commercial break, but all right. Hold the question.
Okay.
We'll be we'll be right back. All right.
I believe in sharing the airtime with everybody.
Yes, he does. Okay. We'll be right back.
Just let me ask the one quick one, then you
Of
can
course.
kick it back.
No, I was just stopping you there to say we'll be right back. Okay, here we go. I have to say we're back. Back. All right. See, I get to do stuff. Okay.
No, I like it. It's good.
We're back with Neil Simon. Michael?
I was just talking about your wife, and I want to give you a chance to respond to a charge in the New York Times book review that says, in this book, you have over-romanticized Joan.
Bull.
Yeah.
Bull is the only thing I can say to it. I wrote it as factually as I possibly could. I can't tell you some terrible, terrible things about Joan to unromanticize her, because I never saw any. Fights, we had fights all the time like any other couple, big fights. Walk out the door, walk around the block. I don't speak to you for a day. But it's pointless to write about that because the fights were pointless. They're young people in love who have the fights. But she was smarter than I was. I think she was a better person than I was. I learned so much from her. So I think that's somebody who's just looking to find something negative, as I think that man is.
Susan, you had a question? Sorry. On that note.
Whoa. You say in your book that you hate jokes.
Well, when I say jokes,
Yes.
I don't mean like a funny line that
Right.
somebody says, a witticism. But when someone says, oh, Neil, I have a good joke. These three guys come along, and then you're in for 3 minutes, and your eyes glaze over, and you just wait for them to finish. And he said, and you watch their lips, and it stopped moving, so now's your time to laugh and say, gee, that was really good, Bill. Thanks a lot.
So you'd been a gag writer on television. Not to trivialize it, but somewhere you knew
No, I
you
was
had
only
something to
a
say.
gag writer when Danny and I were writing for stand-up comics. We wrote gags. The minute we got on television, when I wrote on the Bilko show, those were small movies.
Yeah, so that was the greatest show
They were
ever.
three-act movies. Your show of shows, you never wrote a joke for Caesar. It was always an attitude, a phrase, a scene, a conflict, but no jokes.
With working with Phil Silvers on You'll Never Get Rich later.
Right, yeah.
Who dreamed up that character?
Nat Hiken.
Uh-huh.
He did it for a year or two and then left. He was a brilliant writer. He was lazy because he did it and then he didn't want to do it anymore. Then he created Car 54 and then he gave that up and moved to California and he died all too soon of a heart attack. But he was really talented. He was the first one I asked to direct Come Blow Your Horn. Mm-hmm. And he said, please, I won't be able to play my card game in the afternoons. So he didn't do it.
This leads to another question. With Come Blow Your Horn, you said you wrote it out of terror. That's why you kept writing and writing and writing.
Right, yeah.
You are incredibly successful now. Do you still have the fire in the belly?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have a new play, Proposals, which we will do, go into rehearsal with next June. I've done it, my 6th draft of it now. You just keep working on it. I mean, there's no way I can bring in a play and say, this is pretty good, I'll just put it up there.
Right.
I'm just going to get slapped in the face with it. And that could happen even if it's wonderful. But as long as I do what I think is my best and we get a good cast and a good director, which I think we have, I look forward to it.
And you work every day, what, not like 9 to 5? What's amazing to me is that you work business hours.
Yeah, I
And
know.
then-
My first director, Stanley Prager, described me as like running a grocery store. He goes in, he opens up the store, he closes at 5 and goes home. That's pretty much what I do. I go in about 9:30, come home about 4:30 now, and work about 5 hours of the day.
Were you always
5 days a week.
And you were always disciplined. I mean, as a
Yeah.
kid, were you a disciplined
Yeah.
kid?
See, I have no way to explain that, where that comes from,
Yeah.
where, say, Danny is not that disciplined, and very few of the writers that I know are. I have no problem going into my office and staying there all day. I never feel alone, never saying, what am I doing here? I don't know what to do. I'm writing almost every day. There is that period when you start to look for the play, and you write 20 pages of it or 30 pages of it, and you come to the realization it's no good, and it goes into the drawer, and then you do something else. I've written 1 or 2 plays almost in its entirety and put it away, and then you start to feel, maybe I'm losing it, maybe I'm losing my enthusiasm, and then something else comes along and you feel good again.
Mm-hmm. You say that your plays are character-driven.
Almost all of them.
Almost all of them. I went back and looked at some of reviews of some of the plays, and Frank Rich in the New York Times often criticized you.
Yeah,
She asked the nice questions, I asked the mean questions.
Boy, oh boy.
He, you know, in this book you do say, plays have got to be character-driven, the humor comes from the character. And yet you go back and you look over these Frank Rich reviews, and he says every time Neil Simon is going to reveal some moment, he throws in an easy joke there. Big complaint against you.
That's Frank Rich. I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here where I am today if it weren't for all of the other critics who I think gave me not the benefit of the doubt, but really enjoyed the plays. I mean, I could bring all those other reviews, which my wife has in her bag right now, from all of the plays that I've ever done. But Frank Rich, this is my idea of a perfect critic, is Walter Kerr. He goes to the theater every night, when he was writing, and says, I hope I have a good time tonight. If he doesn't like the play, you didn't do it. It's no good.
Right.
If you like it, he writes it. Frank Rich came to the theater saying, I hope I don't like this play tonight. I know it because I can't have that many plays that were successful that Frank Rich disliked with him giving me an honest criticism of it. Lost in Yonkers, the Pulitzer Prize and the Tony Award.
A play you feel is your best play.
Yes, absolutely.
Why do you think
He
that's your best
dismisses.
play?
It's the most profound, I think. It's the deepest. It really goes way deep into the characters. And the 2 women, the grandmother and Bella, are the 2 richest characters I've ever written. And they're not family. I don't have those people in my family. I reached into some place in my psyche that knew them. I knew how to write Bella. I never went wrong with Bella. I never went wrong with the grandmother. And when he dismisses it, then I just say, that's what I have to deal with.
Well, you've always been in this bind, in a sense that when you're writing light romantic comedies, they were saying he should try writing something serious.
Right.
When you try to write something serious, I remember Frank Rich saying he should go back to writing light romantic comedies.
Exactly. So after a while, you have to get very thick-skinned, which is hard to do, and you sweat over it and you get angry about it, and then it goes away.
Did the critics
as
still
Frank Rich did.
Did the critics still make you nervous?
They make me nervous when they're right, and when they write something, as I said, did I quote I did, I think, the Walter Kerr thing.
No, but he gave that great line, which you did not quote on. Neil Simon did not have an idea for a play this year, but he wrote it anyway.
Yeah, that's a constructive
Star-Spangled
negative review. I agreed with them completely because I told them right from the beginning. I told Saint about that. But with, see, as I said before, with out-of-town critics, they can still be very helpful. They see the baby being born, they're telling you how to take care of it. With New York, it's either death or it's yes, this is a winner.
Yeah.
I don't think he wanted to make me richer, or for whatever, richer. What a strange chunk of words.
The man's genius.
You would have lost all that money anyway. What do you
right.
know about cash?
So I had to discount him as I discount John Simon. I mean, Frank Rich liked one play that I wrote, which was Biloxi Blues,
Yeah.
as did John Simon. So I'm glad he's gone, but it's still, it's always tough with the critics, but you have to just get by it. Yeah.
We only have a couple of minutes left, but I just want to talk about the state of Broadway now. You're talking about out-of-town critics. It was very useful in the old days to be able to take a show, go out of town. You
Right.
can't do that anymore because
No.
of the expense. To the detriment of Broadway?
Oh, sure, but I think they get a long tryout anyway. You take a play out like August Wilson. I mean, he's out almost a year with the play and working on
Right.
it. And not everyone has that kind of opportunity to have actors stay with you that long and
Right.
work on the play. But being in regional theater and going to a couple of the regional theaters are going to help you play a lot. We start off in regional theaters now. I mean, go to Duke University, North Carolina School of the
Right.
Arts, and others. So we work on the plays, but the state of the theater in terms of plays is I feel it's not play friendly anymore. I don't know who the ones that are not friendly, but the audiences they're different kinds of audiences now. They want to bring their children to see a musical.
Mm-hmm.
They could be from foreign countries. They want to see a musical. They don't want to see a play. So in the face of that, I'll still come in with a play next year.
Are you going to bring it to Broadway?
Yeah.
You finished with off-Broadway?
I wouldn't say that, because I may write another play that is off-Broadway,
Right.
that would fit better off-Broadway, which I thought London Suite would, which meant that I probably, in the back of my mind, had some doubts about whether London Suite would have made it on Broadway.
It didn't make it off-Broadway either.
Yeah, it did.
not.
I think so, and it's starting to be played around the country now. I'm starting to see that through Samuel French. But there's something about proposals that has size to it. It has 9 people. I don't mean that kind of size, but there's so many interwoven stories going on all through the same family. It's the first outdoor play I've ever done. It's an exterior.
Yeah.
It's in front of a house, and there's trees and the moon and sun. We have some birds coming by.
You don't even have to open it up for the movie. It's already
No,
good.
it's already shot.
And when's
yeah.
it going to be on Broadway?
Well, probably a year from November.
You got plenty of time to work on it. I'm sure it'll be
Yeah.
terrific. Neil Simon, you've been
Thank you,
great.
Michael.
Thanks for joining us on Theater Talk.
And rewrites a must, all right, especially for playwrights. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time. We'll see you next time on Theater Talk. Good night. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's
You were
my
great.
pleasure.
Thank you.
So are you.
Pleasure to meet you.
Yes.
Hold
Very
still,
tough
'cause they
questions,
gotta
but I like it.